Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for August 26th through September 1st. This week is about healing through connection, cooperation, and really emphasizing our relationship to an experience of attraction, desire, how we feel desired, how we feel connected to other people, how we feel connected to ourselves, and also our sense of calm, soothing, feeling balanced, especially from a sensory or aesthetic sort of connection with the world. So, this is because Venus is a heavy influence this week. Venus is making several different aspects, it's changing signs. So, we're going to talk about that. We also have Mercury stationing direct this week and Pluto changing signs. So, we're going to talk about all of that. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I'm so happy to be able to share the astrology of this week with you from a psychological perspective. So, let us talk about what's happening. I wanted to start with a quote to ground us in what's happening, especially from this Venusian perspective. So, this is words by the psychotherapist and astrologer Greg Bogart. He said, astrology allows us to discern how we and our partners are unfolding, and it teaches us to cooperate with what needs to occur for each of us to achieve greater wholeness, even if this does not match our own desires and preconceptions. And what I really love about this excerpt here is that it's about not just reading for ourselves, but also reading the astrology for others. And so I want you to be holding that this week, that this is something that you're going to be experiencing, but this is also about the other people in your life. And we're all going to have different interactions with the astrology. And I love seeing when other people are reading the chart of maybe someone that's important in their life, whether that's a partner or family, especially. And it helps to understand, oh, this is a way of connecting in with what another person is experiencing. They're having their own perception of the world based on their experiences and their astrology, etc. And they're on their own path and their own journey. And that is going to be different or maybe parallel to ours. And there's this interaction that happens, which is the beauty of relationship, is that we impact one another. And I also too want to comment on this quote that he says that uh, astrology helps us basically understand our path toward wholeness, which I think is a lifelong journey, maybe depending on your belief system, maybe multiple life journey. And he said, even if this does not match our own desires and preconceptions, and I would add to this, I think this may come up this week, is that um, that it may not match what we've been conditioned to believe our desires or preconceptions are. And I'm saying that because I think that sometimes I see this often in my clinical work as a therapist and as an astrologer, is that sometimes we have this idea of what we think should happen, what we think. Um, a little piece of my candle just sort of broke and fell off there. So I'm taking that as a little omen that maybe this is important for you, is that we have this idea of what we think we should feel, what we think we should think, what we think we should want. And a lot of our suffering comes in when what we've been conditioned or programmed to think that we need or want or should feel, and then what we actually think, need, want, and feel, when those are contradictory, and that can be very difficult. And so I want us to be holding space for the possibility that there can be contradiction here. And um, that does not necessarily mean that we need to change what our authentic desire, need, thought, emotions are. Sometimes it's a matter of sitting with the two contradictions, and then there's a working out process that happens. Um, so let's go into this specific astrology and talk about this more. So the emotional context of this week is that we are within the last part of the waning phase of the lunar cycle. And so this means that the moon is appearing smaller and smaller in the sky. This is emotionally about letting go, making peace with things, delegating uh, as much as you can or want to. Um, Deciding to let something go or put it aside or um, reconfigure what it is that you want to do, but in a way that makes things easier for you. We're having our last quarter moon in Gemini on Monday, the 26th of August. And so I think, especially this being in Gemini with Mars and Jupiter, there's this tone of making meaning, Gemini, making meaning with peace and frustrations. And especially, I'm saying that because we had the Mars Jupiter conjunction last week. And this is something that has been even coming into being over the last several weeks. So this sort of and we talked about the last couple of weeks the T square with Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus. So there was a lot, I imagine for you, maybe a lot of psychological or external tension or frustrations or agitations. And so I think that the moon coming in here at the last quarter phase is about understanding and making sense of these experiences that you've had over the last couple of weeks. And as much as you can, making peace with it. And we can't force that. I would say if there's still this agitation this week that you're feeling, then it may be helpful to do some free writing, do an intentional walk or meditation or ritual to intentionally soften the grip around what you've been experiencing. Now, let's talk about Venus. So, Venus is currently in Virgo, and Venus is going to shift from Virgo into Libra this week on the 29th and on Thursday, the 29th. But before Venus does this, Venus is going to make two aspects while it's in Virgo. So it's at the very late degrees of Virgo. It's going to make a trine to Uranus in Taurus, and it's going to make an opposition to Neptune in Pisces. And so this is a combination of things. When we're talking about Venus, we're talking about the psychological principle of relationship, connection, cooperation, trying to come together in some way with a person or with a thing. And Venus also symbolizes the flow state of experience where we can feel a sense of connection within something, within an experience, and within ourselves, and where we feel a sense of ease and calm and beauty. There's also this element of desire and attraction, and the inverse of that, the repulsion, or something that is agitating, something that we do not want to be connected with. And I think Venus can also symbolize, when it's construed, whether that's in the birth chart or in transits, where there is an aversion socially or a challenge around cooperation or connection or attraction, and the complicated feelings that come up around that. And so all of these things are highly relational. There's also this theme, I think, with Venus around healing and how relationship can be healing, how connecting in with where we're moved, that is healing, whether we're moved by a piece of art or writing or something in nature, a sunset, or we're moved toward something, our sense of being pulled towards something. This is all Venusian. And so Venus has a healing component to it. Now, when we're talking about Venus making a trine to Uranus, this is an easy, flowing, harmonious aspect. So it's going to be a little more subtle. It's something that we can notice, but it's not something that's necessarily going to be an agitator in the way that an opposition or a square would be. So Uranus is the principle of change and transition and reinventing something, repurposing something, and it's also about unburdening oneself, freeing oneself from something that has felt constraining or oppressive in some way. It's also connected with going outside of the social norm, whether that is for the shock value or for the novelty or because you're connecting in with something that is truly within your integrity. And so there's something here around an opening with relationship or with beauty or harmony or aesthetics. This Venus Uranus tends to be very creative and exciting, and so I think this is a gift that we have in here, that there is something that can be healing through reinvention. Now, at the same time, we have Venus opposite Neptune. And I think that this can be a sort of confronting aspect, especially because it's Venus in Virgo, which is about the practicalities of Venus themes, the practicalities of relationship. And so there may be this theme this week around confronting illusions, confronting ideals or idealism where maybe you have been seeing things in a way that is is not grounded in objective or consensus reality in some way. And I quite like that Uranus is here in a trine because it feels like there is this uh, spontaneous and quick shift that could happen. And there may be some um, challenge around the Neptune piece, around like it can be painful to confront what is an illusion or what is an ideal. But then Uranus comes in and there's a new discovery around this when we open up to what is actually real. And then we have new information. And so I think this is particularly striking for folks who maybe have planets or points in the mutable signs, so in Virgo, Pisces, or in Sagittarius, Gemini. But I think for all of us, there's this theme around uh, getting more concretely into what is real, what is not, and where we want to feel more alive. I think Uranus brings an element of aliveness here as well. Uh, so, so that's earlier in the week. And then Venus moves into Libra on Thursday, August 29th, and it'll be in Libra through to September 23rd, so about a month or so. Um, and so Venus is this psychological function to connect and to desire and to feel desired, the desire to feel desired. Um, and we're moving from Venus in Virgo, which is very much about the practicality of things, the purposefulness of things, the um, the sacredness of intentionality, the sacredness of a human existence, and of feeling purposeful, into Libra, which is more about a relational way of being that is about maintaining diplomacy and harmony and making sure that the needs of others are honored and that there is a sense of equanimity. I think the shift from Venus in Virgo to Venus in Libra, there's a lighter feel to Venus in Libra. I think that for some folks, Venus and Virgo can feel a little bit, I don't know if heavy is quite the right word, but there's a more serious tone to Venus in Virgo. It is intentional. I mean, it's an earth sign, and so there is this more grounded quality to it. And for some folks that feels very nice. I think for some folks there can be especially maybe if you have a lot of planets in earth possibly in your birth chart, I think Venus in Virgo can exacerbate the tendency to uh, have extremely high standards for oneself. And two, Venus in Virgo is also very much about connecting to the ideal and wanting things to be a very particular way because you see the potential in things. And so with Venus in Libra, there's sort of more of a letting things be and sort of like smoothing things over a little bit. If we're to take this astrologically, Venus in Virgo is Venus in its detriment, which is said to be more challenging traditionally. And then Venus in Libra, in contrast, is Venus in its own sign. And so I think Venus in Libra is um, the more socially acceptable side of Venus. And so it tends to be a little bit easier because this is like the way that Venus functions. It is about harmony and relationships. Um, Now, Venus will make a trine to Pluto when it moves into Libra. So this happens right away because Venus will move into Libra. It'll be at 0 degrees Libra, and Pluto is currently at that time at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And so I think that this is a possibility for healing through healing through relationships, certainly, but especially healing through exposing the unconscious, looking at our internal defense systems, healing via looking at the shadow elements of self or others, healing through looking at the rejected parts of ourselves or the things that we don't want to look at in ourselves. And this is all Pluto territory. So Pluto is all about healing, psychology, the unconscious, whether that is the collective unconscious or the personal unconscious. Pluto is all about the things that we um, consciously or unconsciously repress, reject, project, or the things that we're like, okay, this is not me. I want to get rid of this because I don't like this. And when we look at those things, it actually produces, usually, if it's done in a safe and containing, emotionally safe environment, there's usually a healing experience and an integrative experience because we're reclaiming a part of ourselves that we have rejected. And so this may be something that happens for you internally. It may be something where you see your partner or partners or people in your life, you may see people in a new light. You may um, have a Plutonian experience of seeing them more clearly. They may see you more clearly. That's my hope for you, that there is this mutual experience of being able to see each other. And what's beautiful is that this is a trine. And so this is an easy, harmonious, flowing energy. It's something that happens, it's something that you can take advantage of. It's not something that's going to force you into the experience, if that makes sense. It's, I think, trines and sextiles as aspects, they're sort of like optional. And uh, that's great because then we don't have to stress about it. It doesn't really require anything of us. But at the same time, it can be easy to just let it slip by. And so I think this week there is a benefit to you um, noticing um, noticing where there is something that feels irksome to you, or where you feel vulnerable, or where you feel embarrassed, where you feel guilt or shame, those kinds of things. And what may that mean? What might be underneath that experience? Now, the other piece of this is that on Friday, so Venus moves into Libra on Thursday, the 29th, and then on Friday, the 30th, the moon moves into Leo. And so the moon will be opposite Pluto, and sextile to Venus. And so I think, especially on Friday, there might be a kind of like a pop of energy or an exclamation point around this aspect of Venus trine Pluto, because the moon is coming in to um, to connect with each of them. And so there may be an emotional experience around some of this. And so I would just, notice what you notice. I think it being the moon in Leo, there's especially this theme around authentic self expression, being seen, being visible, being appreciated, all of those things. Now, also that sort of segues us into Leo. So, also this week, Mercury stations direct. Mercury will station direct at 21 degrees of Leo on Wednesday, the 28th of August. And so, as always, Mercury has been retrograde for about 3 weeks or so. Mercury's retrograde began on the 4th of August. And so this moment, this day particularly, and the coming week when Mercury stations is a great time to pause, to reflect, and to uh, take stock of what you've been changing in your life over the last month or so, what you've been contemplating, what has been frustrating or agitating, what you've been redoing, what you've been wanting to redo. And I think also, whenever we're talking about Mercury retrograde, there is this thing around where are there hiccups, where are there like something that doesn't feel quite right and you want to redo it or change it. Um, Even if it feels like you can't change it right now, what's going on there and what may that mean for you? And so, also, this is important too, is that uh, Mercury stations, when I say station, that is the day where Mercury either turns direct or turns retrograde. So those are both station days. And we say that in astrology because it is when Mercury appears to be still in the sky, where it appears to stop moving, like it stations, it sort of anchors in. And this happens on a day. And also, Mercury is very slow before and after the station, the week before and after. And this is because it's going one way and then it slows down and stops and then it picks up speed and moves again. It's kind of like a car shifting directions. You have to slow down before you stop. And so we take this symbolically as well. Like we're slowing down into this process of exploring Mercury in our lives. Mercury being the process of understanding logically, the process of understanding symbolically, making meaning of things, the stories that we tell, the stories that we tell to other people, the stories that we tell to ourselves, the stories that we're telling that we don't even realize that we're telling to ourselves, all of these things. And so this week that we're in and next week is this slowing down and really moving into Mercury. And um, I think that it's a great week to contemplate what has happened over the last couple of weeks. This is the thing with astrology and psychology for that matter too, is that once we get more space from something, it helps us to understand. We get more insight, we get more clarity. It's often very difficult to see what's happening when we're in it. So once we get a little more space, in this case, we're getting more space from the full retrograde period in the month of August. And then also, of course, this retrograde has been happening in the sign of Leo and in the sign of Virgo. And so, if you're familiar with astrology at all and you want to look at this more personally, you can look at the houses in your birth chart that are Leo and Virgo. And that's going to tell us a little bit more about this area of life. And of course, the other planets in your chart as well. Um, so, yeah, so this is a big theme around constantly reviewing and what's shifting and changing. And I think that because this is involving Leo and Virgo, where we've had Venus moving through these two signs, this is also probably going to connect in with whatever is happening with you as far as the Venus side of your life, whether that's relationships or healing or your relationship to beauty, aesthetics, attraction. Okay, so uh, this this next piece is a bit more collective for most of us. So Pluto is moving back into Capricorn on Sunday, the 1st of September. And so uh, Pluto's been sort of going back and forth a little bit with its retrograde, Capricorn and Aquarius. So it's been in Aquarius for a little while. Moved into Aquarius for the first time last year in spring of 2023. And now it's moving back into Capricorn just for a little bit. So Pluto will be moving back into Capricorn from this Sunday, the 1st of September, through November 19th, 2024. On the 19th of November, Pluto will move forward into Aquarius again for the final time. Pluto will be in Aquarius for about 20 years. So it'll be in Aquarius until 2043, and then it will move into Pisces. So this is pretty typical of Pluto. It has a weird orbit, so it stays in a sign uh, anywhere from 17 to 20 years ish. So this is a long time. So this makes it a generational planet, a collective planet, in that its themes are not so personal by sign. So um, essentially, one generation, 20 ish years, will have Pluto in the same sign. And then that means that we can look at Pluto through the signs and we can make correlations and connections that are generational or collective in nature, because people born during that time period are going to have certain shared experiences, and they're going to have certain shared ways of being. And so this movement of Pluto back into Capricorn, I think, is really interesting, because it means that people that are born now, they may have or born, when I say now, I mean within like last year, this year, they may have Pluto in Aquarius natally, they may have Pluto in Capricorn, and they're being sort of marked collectively. They're going to have shared experiences. And so I think what this means for us is that we are collectively remembering going back to Pluto and Capricorn and the experiences of the last 17 ish years or so, and the shared experiences that we've had. And we can look back and make connections to Pluto and Capricorn versus Pluto and Sagittarius. Um, and so this week is not particularly, like, it's more broad strokes. This week may be more impactful as far as Pluto goes for people that have planets, um, personal points or planets in their birth chart within this area where Pluto is. So either at the early degrees of the fixed signs, Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, or folks who have personal planets or points at the very late degrees of the cardinal signs. So Capricorn, Cancer, and Aries, Libra. If you're like, Shawna, that's way over my head, don't worry about that. All I want you to know is that this is more of a collective shift versus a personal shift. And so it may not be something that you feel as dramatically. You may, it's possible. People around you may feel it more dramatically if they have Pluto connecting into their birth chart in a more personal way. Um, and so all of that being said, um, Pluto is really about the unconscious. The unconscious, the shadow, the also dynamics around power and control and resources. These are all Plutonian themes. And I want to read to you words by the late social worker, psychotherapist, and astrologer, Donna Cunningham. She said Pluto represents the rebirth process, the complete makeover we do when we reach our own personal bottom in some area of our lives. It marks those do or die periods when we say nevermore to deeply destructive patterns of behavior. And uh, I want to amend to this that I think that we, depending on who we are and our experiences in our chart, even, that we may experience these periods over the lifetime, that it's not just a one and done sort of situation, because the unconscious, the shadow, both personal and collective, is vast, and we will never entirely be completely conscious of the unconscious. It's sort of like the ocean or a large reservoir. There's always something in there. And Pluto is the ability to find something in that ocean, that there's going to be something that pops up where we can go diving and look for something. And so I think that whenever we're talking about Pluto, and in this case we do have Venus Pluto, Venus making a trine to Pluto, there is an opportunity to discover something that is unconscious. And when we discover something that is unconscious, we're like reclaiming a part of ourselves, and we are reconnecting, and there's a sense of integration and wholeness. And that can sometimes be cathartic, it can sometimes be painful, it can sometimes be joyous, but it is usually an intensive process. And so I don't know what will happen over the next couple of months, but there is this theme of going back and remembering the past 17 years or so, with Pluto moving back into Capricorn. And so I think that the best thing that we can do is to um, be gentle with ourselves, notice where we are feeling a difficult emotion, whether that's shame or guilt or embarrassment, grief, and holding space for that to exist. And that through that, there's sort of an exhausting of the feeling, and the feeling comes and goes, and then it is lived out through us. And even that is this process of transformation and rebirth that Donna Cunningham talks about with Pluto. So let's pull some tarot for you. And as I'm shuffling, I'm gonna look back through my notes and share with you just, yeah, some of the overarching themes for this week. So this week is really Venus oriented, very relationship oriented, and Venus is very much about how we want and what we want, and the complicatedness of our preferences at times, how we sometimes want things that we don't think we should want, or don't make sense, or that we can't have. And I think there's really a reclaiming of that, and a being honest with yourself on what it is that you want, and even wanting to be wanted. There's this theme of healing through connecting in relationships. As I was thinking about this week, I was also really thinking about the Lovers card in Tarot, and how there's this theme of choosing yourself and then connecting with other, and that we need both of those. We need to choose ourselves and be with other, and that those two things sometimes feel like they cannot exist together. And in order to have both of them, we must have both of them. There's also this theme of pausing to reflect on the last month. And within the lunar cycle, there's a theme of recycling, letting go, delegating, making peace with something. And then, of course, this theme of collective consciousness around transformation, rebirth, and being at the depth of an experience, which brings you into the core of yourself. Okay, so of course, this is the time to get into a place of connection with yourself, a sense of feeling regulated, feeling at ease as much as you can. You can feel the sense of your feet, where they're placed, your body in space, the sensation of the clothes on your body, the temperature of the air, the sounds around you, sounds inside you, and then finding an anchor somewhere. So that might be imagining that you have tree roots growing from your legs or your feet into the ground. You might focus on your tailbone or your stomach or the heart or the space between the eyebrows. And wherever you are, you know that everything is exactly as it should be. There's no need to change anything right now. And then in this place of relaxed, attentive awareness, you can connect with anything that is greater than yourself that you have a practice of connecting with, whether that is your soul, your spirit, your higher self, your ancestors, your spirit guides, and ask them to be here with you to share any information with you or any healing experiences. If you like, you can pick a number between 1 and 3 to have one of the 3 cards be a special message for you. All right. First card is the 8 of Wands. And this deck is the Tarot of Spells and Potions. I'm going to read from the book for you because in this deck, the 8 of Wands has a very particular sort of messaging to it. In this card, there's a person who is wearing a purple dress. They have long blue hair and they're wearing a hat, and they look like they're pulling some sort of cart, and they have a broomstick with them, and they sort of look like they're a little bit nervous about going forward, like they've stopped. And I don't know if you can see, but they've stopped in front of like 2 little skulls that are on the ground. And it, to me, this card always looks like this person is pausing at a threshold, or they're pausing before entering someplace. And typically in the traditional Smith-Waite deck, this card is connected with things happening very quickly, moving forward, sort of like a free flowingness, like, and things happening quickly. Maybe a little bit unexpected, but it's like very easy flow of energy. And I think it's always interesting because this card, there's there's sort of a little bit of like hesitation ish. Um, the wands also are a symbol of passion, desire, excitement. There's this like the enthusiasm, the wanting to do things, the excitement around something, and creativity as well. So this card in this deck says, pay attention to the signs. They are everywhere. Light up the light in your heart and keep moving. add speed. And so I wonder if there is something that you're wanting to do, wanting to move forward on. And this card is like, pay attention to the signs, to the synchronicities. Uh, Pay attention to what you're feeling, what feels true for you. Pay attention to synchronicities and omens that are around you, no matter how subtle. And I think like anything that happens, we can omanize, we can symbolize. But particularly, sometimes there's something that happens and it strikes us. And those are the things, especially to pay attention to. So this is kind of like, I don't know, maybe there's more that's happening that you're not quite noticing. The second card is also an eight. So this is the Eight of Cups. And I pulled this card reversed. Uh, so the Eight of Cups tends to be about regretfully leaving a situation. In this card, there's this person who's sitting in what looks like a little cafe, and they look super content. They have one little cup that looks like it's a cup of something, certain sort of hot beverage, and then all of the other eight cups are on shelves behind them. And they're sitting on a bench at a table, and they have this little cat that's like super cozy next to them. And yeah, they just look really content. And um, so I always find this card sort of ironic in this deck too, because this the Eight of Cups traditionally is about moving on from a situation that is not suiting you and sort of making peace with, like, you know what, this didn't go down the way that I wanted it to, and that sucks, and I need to go on to a different situation. In this deck, this card to me feels more like picking one thing and being satisfied with that one thing. Now, I did pull this reversed. So I think there's something uncertain about this. There may be an uncertainty around the choosing, an uncertainty around uh, committing or uncommitting. And um, eight in numerology. So we have two eights here. We have the Eight of Wands, the first card, and then the Eight of Cups, the second card. Eights tend to be about stability, about material success and material situations as well. So, sort of like the structure of our lives. And so, I don't know, maybe there is something here around the structure of your life that you are figuring out how to be with or how to not be with. And I actually want to read from the book here for you as well for this card. So, Eight of Cups, this deck says, making a choice in favor of one, we have to give up the other. It's unavoidable. Don't regret a missed opportunity. Yeah, so this is about like choosing one thing rather than choosing nothing. And so I don't know, only you know what is right for you, but it definitely feels like there is a questioning around the choosing and what's right for you. And I feel like you're sort of at the threshold of that of that journey. And what I like for you though is that it sounds like there is guidance from psyche, there is guidance from soul, um, there is something for you here to pick up on. It's just a matter of reading it. And um, I would say, because we're still within the Mercury retrograde process, we're still coming out of it, it makes sense to me that, like, this is not like to give you pressure to make the decision, but I think it is um, underlining that there is communication that you're receiving about this decision, and that there is a decision, or there is a prioritizing to be made here. And though we haven't talked about Saturn in this week's astrology, I'm thinking about Saturn in that um, when we say yes to something, we're also simultaneously usually saying no to something else. That there is a prioritizing, and that sometimes that sucks. Sometimes we want to have everything, and so that may be a part of what's happening here. Okay, the final card is the chaos card in this deck, which I think I pulled last week or maybe the week before. So I think it's really interesting that it's reappearing. But um, I remember I pulled it at the beginning of the spread previously, and this time it's the third card. So this card is really about maintaining your calm and equanimity within chaos as much as you can. So I think this card is such a reminder to uh, do the things that you need to do to stay regulated, to stay grounded, to talk to yourself in a kind, reparenting sort of way, to know that everything is going to be okay and that you are taken care of. This card also uh, really, for me, emphasizes the intuitive connection that we can tap into when there is chaos, that we can trust in our sense of something, that can be balancing even when we don't know what is going to happen or what is happening. We can connect into we are okay, and then also our intuitive function within it, and to feel into something. And our feeling is not always going to be accurate, but the best that we can do is in every moment make a decision or sit with something based on what feels right to us in the moment. And so the best that you can do is act on what info you have and what feels right to you. And even if you're wrong, you've still honored what is right to you in the moment. And is it wrong or or not? That's subjective, I suppose, in many cases. Uh, so so let's put this all together a little bit here. So there's something here around taking advantage of a situation, moving forward. It feels like you're maybe at a pause point, and there is info for you here. There is when you connect, like I'm thinking about what it said here in this deck, that when you connect in with the light of your heart, which is very Venusian, there is something for you to move into here. And how can you connect into the light of your heart? And how can you choose what is right for you, what you want? And of course, this card was reversed. So this is not something that you necessarily need to settle into this week. I think that's also kind of what I'm feeling here too, especially with the chaos card, is that um, sometimes when we figure things out like this, it can be a little uh, messy or transitionary or a little bit at a time. I think that we tend to envision making a decision and that's that, and then we feel good about it. But sometimes it's kind of like a feeling into what feels like a yes, what feels good, and refining versus okay, this is it, done. That's sometimes it happens that way. I don't know, maybe you're a person that has Uranus really connected into your chart, but if you are maybe someone that tends to feel into something, it's going to be more of a process for you. And there might be this element of, I don't even know if chaos is quite the word that I want to use for it, because chaos feels pejorative in some ways, that there might be a sort of moving into things in a way that is more intuitive versus logical, and that is exactly where you need to be Wherever you are is exactly where you need to be. And right now, it's settling into what is true for you and what is true in your heart. All right. That is your astrology for this week. I hope that you enjoyed this. I always love hearing what's going on with you. So thank you so much for uh, sharing comments or reviews wherever you do that. Um, I'm wishing you a really wonderful week, an easeful week, a healing week, and I'll see you next week. All right. Bye.